Hi, this is Gilbert Still, and this is my assignment for Module 8, Case Study Narrative, Monitoring and Evaluating District Systems, Operations, Resources, and Technology, and their connection to vision/mission statements. Section 1, looking at the summarization of the case. So who is involved? So the State City Department of School District, SCSD. It is a rural area 25 miles from a large city. It only serves students of grades K through 8. High schoolers then have to travel to another location. Mr. Keith Sample is the superintendent and the K through 8 principal and has been that for the past 3 years. Has PTA and a PTA president, Mrs. Evans. School district faculty and staff, Mrs. Lynn, the library/media specialist, Mrs. Williams, and Mrs. Brandon, third grade teachers. Continuation of the summarization of the case on what happened. For the past 3 years, the PTA, school district faculty and staff have agreed to use available monies from fundraising to purchase new computers. So they now have a computer lab that's housing 20 computers. The parent faculty committee of the PTA goal was to purchase a new software for the next 2 years. Mrs. Lynn ordered a new software program for grades for use in the computer lab, but after getting feedback and seeing what they rated the highest and what they liked the best. After using the computer lab for a while, 4 months, several teachers wanted to use the new software programs on a broader scale. So teachers asked Mrs. Lynn to copy the programs, and she did so on flash drives and had copies of them for them. Mrs. Brandon was not okay with this and shared her concerns with the superintendent, Mr. Sample. Mr. Sample met with Mrs. Lynn about the copywriting. Mrs. Lynn said she was unaware of violating any copyright issues, but seems to think it is okay because no one will find out or care about a few copies for classrooms at SCSD. And then Mr. Sample has asked her to collect everything that she's made copies of. Section 2, legal or ethical issues. Mrs. Lynn was making copies of the newly purchased software programs so they can be installed on computers in all classrooms. Copies were made on flash drives and distributed to teachers despite copy infringement. The loophole was created by making the copies on flash drives. Section 3, synthesizing exactly what happened. State City Department School District is looking to become a more innovative and technology-based school district. SCDS gets a new software programs for use in their computer lab. Teachers love it and ask for copies for individual use in their classrooms. Mrs. Lynn makes copies on flash drives and gives them out despite copyright restrictions. Section 4, synthesizing the facts. So people that are vital in this, Mr. Keith Sample, the superintendent and the K through 8 principal. Mrs. Lynn, the librarian media specialist. Parent faculty committee of the PTA. Mrs. Williams, Mrs. Brandon, the two third grade teachers. Place that this is occurring is the State City Dependent School District, rural area 25 miles from a large city, grades K through 8. The program, they're trying to be more innovative and technology-based school district. New software program was the focus for computer lab usage, and then copyright restrictions broken. Software programs were copied on flash drives and given out to teachers. Section 5, review and prioritize the information. Damage. Mrs. Lynn is committing software piracy and is violating the copyright law. SCDC is in a vulnerable position because the copyright holder could seek damages from them as well as the teacher. Those include financial penalties to the district. Mrs. Lynn could lose her job for breaking terms of contract and policy. Further questions. Did Mrs. Lynn receive training or have knowledge about copyright violations? Does Mrs. Lynn understand the legal consequences? How many copies did she make for those second, third, and fourth grade level teachers? And did she provide any other copies to teachers besides Mrs. Williams? Section 6, options and possible consequences. So no action. So if there's no action, Mrs. Lynn and the school board could be held responsible by the copyright holder, financial penalties, loss of jobs. Another option, allow Mrs. Lynn to make copies and provide them to teachers, district consequences. Teachers are happy and use programs in classrooms. Faculty consequences, loss of jobs. Third option, collect all copies and come up with a solution to purchase more programs. District resources and needs are being evaluated. Data-informed decision-making is occurring with collective collaboration. Intentional specific budgeting and planning can occur, and then no violations are being broken. Section 7, evaluating those options. So no decision, possible legal consequences, trust broken for teachers that know this is legally wrong. So if Mr. Sample were to go through with it, that is how some teachers could look at him. Second option, allowing Mrs. Lynn to make copies and provide them to teachers. Once again, possible legal consequences. Teachers are happy with the additional program usage. Third option, collect all copies and come up with a solution to purchase more programs. Mrs. Lynn and teachers who have copies are upset. Builds collective efficacy, having those collaborative conversations. Database district resource planning and decisions can be made. Budgeting and planning collaboration can occur. Section 8. So if I were the superintendent, the best option to me would be to collect all the copies and come up with a solution to purchase more programs. So looking at this on why this would be the best option, because we're not violating copyright, we're avoiding piracy, so then we're not having any legal consequences or staff consequences that have to occur. From this process, we would be able to understand that there needs to be annual training on copyright and software piracy that needs to happen with all staff. This would allow for collaboration amongst all stakeholders. So having a committee to being able to discuss and look at the data and have data-driven conversations. So having conversations on how are software programs being used? Are they improving the teaching and learning? What is the data actually showing? How many programs do we need? What grade levels? And what is the cost? Section 9, so imagining implementation as if I were the superintendent. So I would first communicate and provide education to the library media specialists and teachers, all faculty and staff about copyright, software piracy, software policy, and legal consequences. I would then put together a technology committee so we could look at the software programs further. We would have a wide variety of committee members, which include teachers, the library specialists, faculty, PTA, parents, community stakeholders, myself. So then that we could all next look at reviewing data and have collaborative discussion about the additional software programs or more software licenses, and getting feedback on the cost of additional software programs, look at different budget lines and fundraising funds to see what can be purchased. So having different conversations and talking about all the data points and why the need is there, are these software programs helping us with and being effective with teaching and learning? And then lastly, we would want to look at the solutions and findings from looking at the collected data and the feedback from our committee. And then we want to come up with the long-term plan for getting additional software programs for classrooms if we find that they are necessary to have. Section 10, reflection. So my reflection of this assignment. Throughout this case study and throughout this course, I've learned the importance of providing professional development to your staff, especially when it pertains to them. So I've learned, I knew there were negative implications for copyright, but I didn't understand the financial penalties that could come into it with the district, and then how the teacher could also be held responsible, and then not even thinking about it with it being in terms of their contract and them breaking that. And then thinking about it as a superintendent and principal, if you're supporting it, then you're allowing that to occur. So in addition, this has helped me understand that a collective collaboration is vital. It is vital because everyone wants to do what is best for kids, but we need to ensure we are meeting their needs in a legal and professional way. If we're in committees, it allows collective collaboration to occur, and it allows us to look at things from different perceptions and lenses, and then it allows us to come up with a solution that's best for students' needs. In this case study, it allows me to look at ways on how management of financials and fiscal budgeting and planning are important in order to provide resources to teachers with the end goal of helping the students be successful. And then these last 2 pages are my references. Thank you.